players that we've seen at the top tables of YCSs over the course of the last handful of years. I know Hani's recently won a YCS championship.
Yeah, in Pasadena.
Pasadena, yep.
This past year. Cameron Neal is a UDS champion as well. Like, really decorated players. And Cameron does opt to go first. Going to be really important in this matchup. Again, you don't want to let the combo deck go first, even though Unchained, again, really strong at going second, able to clear fields really well, but still better at going first.
Absolutely. And we see Abomination destroyed.
The Chamber's going to be able to special summon that Shyama. Now you're going to immediately link these two off into Unchained Soul of Yama.
And then he'll be sending a trap.
So we already started with Shavara. I imagine you're going to be either setting the escape or setting the wailing here. If he plays it, I'm not even sure if he actually plays it. Cameron is playing quite a tight list, focusing on more on having those interruptions from the hand, trying to prevent his opponent from doing things.
It looks like he goes with escape, which makes sense.
Yep, and now he's probably going to add Aruha unless he already has a copy of it in his hand. But I imagine if you already had a copy of Aruha in your hand, you would never start with Shavara.
No, definitely not. It looks like his hand might have a copy of Ash Blossom.
It was like
maybe a Thrust?
I think it's Ash, Thrust, and Sarama.
Okay, so he had 2 copies of Sarama in his opening hand then.
He plays 2?
Oh, maybe I'm mistaken.
I think he only has 4 cards in hand at this point, right? Like it should be Aruha, Sarama, Ash, and Tactics.
Oh, it's Sarama in hand. Okay.
Yes.
It was hard to tell.
All right, so he's going to have to normal summon that Sarama later in this play, which is pretty convenient when you start with Shavara anyway. Ideal that you didn't have to add it to your hand.
Yeah, it's a critical point in the opening play, regardless of how you get access to it.
Sure.
And here's Aruha sending the escape.
So Cam's gone through a few of the checklists here for the interruptions that Hani can have. He knows that he's not going to be hit with Drone Lockbird. He's not going to be hit with Ash Blossom. He's not going to likely be hit with Infinite Permanence. The last thing you need to really pay attention to is Nibiru the Primal Being.
And these players, knowing each other outside of this particular match, I wonder if they have that knowledge about whether either of them are actually on Nibiru.
Yeah, because, I mean, they're both very aware of what each other are playing. They definitely knew the deck types. But I don't know for sure if they knew exactly what tech choices they were going for, like what non-engine, as we would say, that they would focus on. So it's not necessarily a guarantee that that kind of information was disclosed prior to this point.
Yeah, in a perfect world, you can put Caesar on the field prior to any of the points in which you can be hit by Nibiru, and obviously Cameron was unable to do that here.
He just needs to try to put the Shavara back in his hand as early as he can, so he can still have interruptions in the following. Like if something happens, that's like the main way the deck tries to play around Nibiru. Is it tries to just keep a Shavara in hand and try to use it after the fact to keep playing, because then you could trigger another destruction effect. You can use Yama, you can get the board back, but you started with Shavara this way, so it's a little bit more awkward. But there are plenty of ways to do it. So here we go. We get to destroy the Rage, set the escape, or is it the escape or the chamber? Probably chamber, right? If I had to guess. Nope, it's escape.
Yeah, I was about to say, I thought I saw him set escape.
Going to go ahead and destroy the Sarama here, summon out Shyama. Sarama's effect will likely be summoning a copy of another Shavara here, just so you can go into that Caesar.
Yep.
0 interactions from Hani here, so it looks like that thrust in Cam's hand is going to just stay there for now. Going to be potentially very useful in the follow-up.
It doesn't look like Cameron has anything overwhelming to search. It's simply something like an Infinite Impermanence, which is definitely another layer of interruption had Hani activated a monster effect this turn, but it's not like he has some type of singleton normal trap card that would have shut down Hani's turn entirely.
Mr. Yeager? Okay.
Yeah, it's probably better off using it to grab a copy of Talents on the second turn when there are monsters on the field.
Absolutely.
So I wonder, like, this play doesn't, or I guess because the Rekeia is there, you have a way to trigger Yama at any point, and that's going to be able to summon back Rage, but I don't like that you don't have the immediate ability to go after like the Rage just to put it on the field.
This is interesting. Hani actually still, he either drew it as a 6 card or he just held Impermanence throughout the duration of that turn. Maybe he could tell by the makeup of Cameron's opening play that he knew where it was going, such that the Infinite Impermanence was actually better used on his turn as opposed to a single interruption on Cameron's turn.
Yeah, maybe all he really cared about was making sure the Caesar wasn't there. But I don't think this deck is necessarily all that strong at dealing with removal. And he's starting with Ryphobia, so I don't think his hand is crazy optimal either.
Resolution?
No.
In a deck with many field spells, that's not necessarily the one you want to start with when you get that for free almost every time.
Yes. It kind of feels like drawing Boot Sector Launch or Dragon Ravine. Probably more Dragon Ravine than Boot Sector Launch, because at least Dragon Ravine, similar to this, would have some utility. But here we see another planet come down, instead the peaceful planet, Calarium.
Right. Why do you think he led with the Ryphobia instead? Do you think he was trying to bait out the escape? just hoping that he would just go after either.
I think he could potentially do that. It also, you know, it could check for something like Ash Blossom as well.
Right. And now we are going to use the escape on the second field spell here, prioritizing getting rid of the Mannadium cards. Going to destroy the Rakea, which is going to be able to summon from deck, and likely going to trigger the Yama here as well, because you do want access to the Rage. Well, it looks like it's just the Rakea. We didn't see the Yama trigger here.
It could have been something that he said and he just...
Well, it does banish itself a cost.
Yes,
So.
so yeah.
Okay, so he's going to special summon out a Ruha here. He does have actually the Shavara in hand,
Shavara
so
in hand.
he's just going to keep waiting. That makes more sense.
Yeah, just about to say, he did search that during last turn, so I think it's clear that he wants to kind of hold back on the interaction instead of putting it all on the field.
Yeah, he definitely wants to keep resources back. Now he's playing around potential tactics cards as well. There is going to be the Rykart here. Not going to force to normal summon it. You are able to get Arrival here, which doesn't actually do anything because we don't see anything else going on. He can still link it away into Lightheart and then special summon back the Rykart, but doesn't really do anything at this point, right?
Now, it doesn't feel like this is the best collection of cards. Hani's drawn the singleton copy of Reichphobia, which again is a card you usually can just search for free over the course of the turn, and then the Clarion was stopped with Escape. So it doesn't seem like thus far, at least with what we've seen, that he's had the most ideal collection of cards, and he's kind of shaking his head a little bit here.
All right, but we are able to special summon Meek because he does have a monster with 1,500 attack and 2,100 defense. So, but the more Hani puts on the field, the more threatening this Rage becomes, because Rage into SP will be able to get rid of 3 cards essentially. So as long as Hani just keeps committing monsters onto the field, Cameron can find a point that he can just deal as much damage as he can. How many cards are in Hani's hand at this point? We know of Arrival, and then we've lost 2 field spells already. One was exchanged for essentially free, so the Reichphobia gave him the Rykart. We have the Infinite Impermanence that's gone. So does he still have 2 or 3 cards in his hand at this point?
So it was Meek, Impermanence, a planet that replaced itself, so... and then a planet that got stopped, so that was 3 cards that he's used this turn. I think he should have 3 cards remaining.
It sounds about right. Like, let's see how many extenders he can really have at this point. Yeah, 3 cards.
3 cards.
So we know Arrival. Hani really considering his options here. He knows that that Rage is looming. And also, if he just doesn't deal with the Caesar, it's going to pose a huge threat later as well.
You simply cannot pass the turn back and allow that monster to stay on the field. Cameron's playing this incredibly patient. And I think that's really benefiting him right now, because it seemed like Hani was really hoping that there would be interactions earlier, but it was the first field spell activation. But the fact that he's gotten this part into the turn and Cam is holding back that interaction to bring back Rage, I think is really impressive.
That's usually what happens against decks like this that can do so much. They have so much output. The earlier you use your responses, the less they've already had to commit, so the more they can put through. So now he's going into the brand new Mannadium, level 6 monster here.
Trisukta, and then he's bringing back the Meek from the graveyard.
I wonder if this is a point where you would actually start doing things, because now there is a monster that is summoned from the extra deck, so a Little Knight can actually do some damage, and this is maybe where you want to start protecting your stuff. But then again, Little Knight does target, so actually I think that's a really good reason to start activating your cards here, because Little Knight will be able to block Shavara from actually destroying any cards. So I think you might have to use your star effects here.
Oh, no, he says good.
Yeah, maybe just saying, okay, Hani, if you're going to go for Little Knight here, that is essentially going to end your turn. And that's going to be enough for him to just allow that to happen. Oh, no, he's going to keep trying to play here. He's going to go into Visara. Amritara, yeah. Because between Samsara and like all the other ones, I get a little confused. But this one is effectively Trevor Karma. It adds any spell trap that lists Visa Starfrost on it.
Yeah, very similar names. And the Visa storyline and lore is not ending. I've seen some of the previews of cards upcoming.
She'll never stop.
It's the never-ending story.
There's still planets to discover.
That'd be something else. Oh, so he's going to Ash Blossom there. I wonder what Hani would have searched. Probably a copy of, I don't know, maybe,
like, I don't think an Obsession does anything.
I was about to say Obsession, but I'm not sure Obsession does enough here.
Because it would be forced to add another copy of the field spell. And the field spell wasn't negated, it was simply destroyed, so you might even be useful here.
So we know Hani still has the Arrival in hand. So he does have the ability to put a second monster on the field. But we're still at this point in the turn, and Cam has been holding that ability to bring back Rage with the Destruction effect in his hand.
So he can turn this into Lightheart now. It looks like that's what he's going to do. And I think this is what... okay, so actually this is one thing that Cameron doesn't have to worry about. There still is not an actual Visa Starfrost in the graveyard because he never had access to Visa Samsara. Oh, but there it is. There is the Visa Starfrost. I think this card needs to be banished so he doesn't have access to Vicious Astrolabe, which can do the most here. And also, you're going to be threatening a Baron very soon. So the Lightheart is going to be destroyed. The Lightheart can summon itself back as long as you control a Visa Starfrost, I believe.
Once per duel.
Okay, I'm just checking if there's any other floating effects in the graveyard that he needs to be aware of. As soon as another body is put on the field, I think Cam is going to be forced to activate his effects. And then just deal with the last two cards, and hopefully it's not enough to end the game. Because, again, the point of Unchained, as long as you see another turn, you will have enough resources to be able to kick back. I think if he's able to deal with the two monsters that's going to be on the field at the time, putting him on just a rival and one more extender.
And here's the Shavara that we were commenting on earlier. He held off on doing this. Potentially wanting Hani to invest more onto the field, knowing that he has Ash Blossom in hand also allowed him to sequence it in such a way that, you know, he could create a situation where the opponent was playing around Shavara, but not necessarily the Ash Blossom. And now it's difficult to play around both, probably impossible.
So the one part that I'm a little concerned about here is that you're choosing to do this with just the Starfrost on the field. Because you don't want to interact with it just solely by itself. Because, yeah, okay, you can make you can get the soul here, but you don't want to put him in the graveyard, do you? Because then he's able to go into Astrolabe, and that's going to be able to force out another interaction.
No, you'd want to SP Little Knight this.
Yeah, but you can't.
You can't now, yeah, but that is true. Do you think it would be more beneficial to have the second monster hit the field then?
Yeah, I would have waited for another monster, but I'm sure Cam has a plan here.
Hani's shaking his head. Maybe he's seeing the same line here, questioning, you know, where is this going?
Yeah, he's opting to use the Yama to destroy the Shavara as well, setting the chamber. Which, interesting, because I guess he assumes the Caesar is going to survive, so he's not going to be able to get the set otherwise. And then, okay, yeah, he's immediately linking into Little Knight.
He can banish.
Which the card from, you can just
from the graveyard anyway.
He can just, okay, it looks like he's going to try to banish the right card from graveyard. Yep, you're going to just read a rival real quick. Not a quick play spell.
So although you can banish from graveyard, do you think it still would have been more valuable to just banish from the field?
Yeah, I would have liked to be able to link with his monster and then also banish a card on his field. I think that just, because it generally means that Hani would have to commit one more card, right? Whether it be the Lightheart from the grave or just a card from the hand.
So you can get rid of the Visa Starfrost this way.
Yes.
However, you're using a banish on a card in a graveyard that otherwise could have just been on the field. So it feels like you're giving Hani an additional piece.
I'm trying to think, what was he playing around? What is he afraid of that he felt like he needed to do there? There likely is something that we're missing.
Mannadium's not exactly the most popular deck. I mean, obviously he's probably practiced a little bit, so it could just be... Maybe he's worried about Reinhardt, but Reinhardt could have just destroyed the Visas there anyway.
Mm-hmm. It looked like Hani's other card was a terraforming. I don't know how many field spells he has left that are going to be useful. Every other field spell at this point only gets him access to Visa Starfrost. Not going to be that useful anymore.
The only one he has left is Peril Rhino.
Mm-hmm.
He's already visited Calarium, and he tried to visit Calarium. It got destroyed upon activation, and then he visited Reichphobia.
Yeah, he only got to visit Reichphobia, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it looks like Cam is able to take game one pretty convincingly, just being able to use his stops appropriately, keep Hani off the necessary resources. And again, this is what we're talking about with Mannadium. When you're able to remove the bodies from the field, it's really easy to control what they have access to. And again, when you have like more information available, then you're able to really just limit access to Visa Starfrost. You know that Vicious Astrolabe is looming in the extra deck. You just want to keep him off that, and he was very aware of that. Make sure to banish the Visa Starfrost somehow from the graveyard.
Yeah, if you're ever playing against a deck that has access to Visas Astrolabe, you need to be or Vicious Astrolabe, you need to be very aware of those Visas names, and if you have the ability to banish it, for example, with a card like Little Knight, you absolutely should be prioritizing that, because once you remove that, it might be a lot of effort for them to get access to another copy, although they do have multiple versions in their deck.
Now, Hani does get to go first post-side here, and this is where I think the deck really shines, obviously. It's a heavy combo deck, and we see, even just looking at the side deck, he's going to be accessing a Abyss Dweller, which is extremely powerful against a deck like Unchained.
Yeah, being able to side deck in a card like Abyss Dweller when the targeted matchups are out there, such as Unchained, is obviously a huge benefit to Hani, being able to go first and target Abyss Dweller as a card that he wants to access. It is one of those things where, unfortunately, being unable to win game one, he's only going to be able to go forward going first in one of the upcoming 2 games. But nevertheless, we're still going to see Abyss Dweller as an option for Hani in this game, which could be a huge point of contention for Cameron.
Yeah, Cameron does have access to Drone Lockbird in this side as well. That's going to be one of the most impactful interactions that you can ever do from the hand against this deck. That was basically the downfall of the entire previous format, because Drone Lockbird was relatively popular, whether it be in some main decks or just generally always in the side deck. So you didn't really want to play Mannadium because you could just sometimes lose this card immediately. And that potential right is still there. I'm not sure if any of the new cards really gave it any assistance in that matter, or maybe you just hope that Droll isn't as popular for this event.
Unfortunately, I think that's wishful thinking. I mean, Hani actually is main decking Drone Lockbird himself, so the idea of going into this event and not seeing a lot of Drone Lockbird is counterintuitive if you're main decking them yourself, because you came to the conclusion that they must be lined up pretty well against the meta. It's going to be tough. I mean, obviously you want to go first, and Hani is going to elect to go first, but you're looking at Cam's deck. He was already playing 3 different maxed out hand interactions with Ash Blossom, Nibiru, and Infinite Impermanence, and now we're potentially going to go all the way up to 12 with 3 copies of Drone Lockbird. So although Hani's deck has a really high ceiling, that assumes it goes uninterrupted, and there are some really powerful interruption points that Cameron can potentially see in his opening hand game 2 that can shut down his combo.
Yeah, well, I think when you're playing a deck like this, you always got to just put him on better habit. So we're going to likely see Hani go first here, and we'll see how deep this combo can go.
That's definitely a concession you make when you play these type of strategies. You know you're not going to win every die roll, and there are going to be interactions from the hand. So you need to know the decision points and how your decision tree changes with that information.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a lot of thought put into this. It's not like he came here and got here just barely. As we start game 2 of the top 16, Hani made it here with a guaranteed record, actually. He was 10-1-1, so he was secure in his top 32 finish. So I think he has a plan no matter what interruptions Cameron might have. But again, starting with right card, not ideal.
And now he has a deck that has 3 copies of Hero Lives, the single copy of Prisma, a bunch of different cards.
And there's your Drone Lockbird. On a weak start as well. Like Hani questioning if he wants to even hand the deck over, maybe just put everything back in it.
That seemed a bit premature. Even if my hand was completely shut down by Drone Lockbird, I need to at least see what my opponent does. If there's anything that yesterday taught me in that round 4 feature match between Jeff and Justin, let your opponent play their turn out and see what they can do. Because you never know, you might get another draw phase.
All right, Dragon Duelist, born in the year 2010 or later, this is the last call for your casual field event.
You're going to have to figure out if you can at least make a Dweller here. So can you put another level 4 monster on the field?
That seems really difficult to do without searching. Had he opened to Hero Lives, different story.
Cameron seems pretty pleased with himself, just sitting, waiting for his turn. Okay, there is a copy of Meek because he does control a monster with 1521. He's able to go into a Synchro 6 if he wants. They can at least climb up into an 8. Maybe just go into at least a Baron.
Yeah, going to Excel into Baron, a play sequence that we've seen basically since the moment Excel was released.
This is such an interesting climb, 6 to 8 to 10.
So flawlessly, too.
Effect to Reborn.
For Hani's sake, I hope that Baron is not the only thing that he's able to put up this turn.
No, I mean, like, he has access to essentially any level 10 Synchro in his extra deck, because especially when you're making with Excel, you do have access to Despotter as well. I don't think that's going to be the one you go for, but maybe, let's see, Excel is Excel a wind?
I believe so.
Yeah, so, okay, not going into Chaos Angel then. Let's see, what do you think the strongest level 10 Synchro generically is against Unchained?
I think Baron just generically.
Sonag.
So it seems like he went into Lightheart.
Target, shuffle back in. You can put them together.
All right, so yeah, he did have access to the Samsara here. So now he is able to make that Dweller, and that might just buy him another turn, actually.
Yeah, he was able to find 2 level 4s.
Good.
So at this point, I think Cameron's just looking for access to Zeus. If he has access to the Dark Contract with the Gates, or if he has access to a Turd Guide from the Underworld, he's just going to try to lock up the field. And because Hani had to commit a lot of cards into this play, it's not like he's going to have a immediate amount of follow-up. He only has 1 card in hand. Looks like the Dweller does resolve here. All right, he has a... Oh, he did have... That's interesting. He had to have drawn the Nibiru for turn.
100%.
I think... I still feel pretty comfortable with having the Nibiru in hand, though. If you are able to summon a monster to attack over the Dweller, you are pretty comfortable that you're not going to immediately lose next turn, because if to win, you have to play into the Nibiru, right? And then you're just going to get another turn, so you don't want to commit maybe too many resources right now either.
Cam's getting a read of the new Visa Samsara, just verifying that he knows all of its effects. It will be treated as a Visa Starfrost in the graveyard.
Yeah, that is going to be the biggest threat, right? You know that Vicious Astrolabe is already available. Yep, okay, unfortunately we're going to have to commit here, going to use a Ruha that's going to lock you into Fiends, destroying the chamber, not going to be able to activate its effect because of that Abyss Dweller. And then, yeah, a normal summon of Fiendish Rhino Warrior. This gives him access to a rank 3, but can't go into Zeus anymore. There's Book of Moon. I mean...
Thinking on which one.
Interesting. You're just trying to lock up the rank 3, but which rank 3 were you really that worried about? Because normally it would be Darius, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what.
And even then, like, he's locked into Fiends, so what are you concerned about?
I don't think there is anything.
I'm going to target this one. Sorry.
Okay, it looks like they're targeting the Aruha. We're going to attack over the Lightheart here. Get some damage in.
Fiendish Rhino Warrior can still attack. Sometimes it comes down to that.
All right, so Dweller survives.
Which is huge.
And Hani is now able to potentially play his turn out. There's a Rykart in the graveyard. He might just be forced to use the Dweller and try to go for game here, because he's going to put the Samsara in the grave, which is which is Visa Starfrost in the graveyard.
The normal summon of the Droll and Lockbird.
Okay, likely going to SP.
Send these 2 off.
To banish the Aruha.
I was thinking about Cross Sheep, because you don't want to lose the ability to attack directly.
Oh, and the other card in hand was Phantasmi. He has Phantasmi Nibiru. And using Ash Blossom, they're getting rid of the last card. So he's going to, if he's trying to go for game right now, he's playing right into the Nibiru, which is not going to destroy the Aruha. It's going to destroy the, it's going to send the Rhino, the Fiendish Rhino Warrior to the graveyard. It's going to send Sarama, which is going to trigger.
The Dweller was
Oh, the Dweller was,
yeah,
okay. So we're
he's still going to have the set monster.
Yes,
but
Card effects, but it's face down, so I'm going to go Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2, thinking.
I guess you could just play around that by destroying the set here.
Going to pop that. It pops it.
Right, still under Dweller. So, I mean, you have to Nibiru now.
it is insightful to hit the face down as well.
Was that 5 summons? Because it was normal summon Droll, it was the Vicious, it was the Meek, it was the Cross Sheep.
I think that's 4.
It was 4, okay. And there's the Baron. Okay, this might be enough to get there. So locked with only Phantasmi and Nibiru in hand, there's no single draw that gets you out of this.
Well, you're definitely going to Nibiru now just to force the negate.
Yeah.
And then there could be a...
It's Tour Guide.
Tour Guide, yeah.
It is Tour Guide, but it, like, without Rhino?
Without Rhino, it's not nearly as powerful, but...
Bro.
Oh, he didn't use Nibiru. Oh.
Interesting. That's likely an oversight here, because he needed to play into his outs a little bit.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yep, and he's going to have to pass back.
Okay. This is
Oh,
face
because
down.
yeah, Aruha was face down, so it can be destroyed because it's not confirmed Fiend
Yeah,
monster
yeah,
at the time.
I popped the face down with Vicious Astrolabe.
Yeah, Judge is trying to confirm if the Aruha could have been destroyed while Fiendish Rhino Warrior was on the field. It was destroyed by the effect of Vicious Astrolabe while it was set, so it's all good.
Sound good.
I was making sure it wasn't a tactical.
Just verifying. Some of these cards have secondary effects that almost never come up, but they do matter. They are on the card.
That was like almost the primary effect of Fiendish Rhino Warrior when it came out, right?
First came out.
Yeah, to protect your Burning Abyss monsters. Still useful to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah, how much?
43 with 44 on the field, huh? Or yeah, a little bit more because the Synchro Monster was special summoned to it.
Oh yeah, Crush Heap's additional effects.
My turn, right? Go for turn. Normal summon, attack rate.
Yep. And we're going into game 2. Looks like Drone Lockbird was not enough because Abyss Dweller was.
Yeah, sometimes just finding access to Abyss Dweller. We commented on the fact that he was able to side it in. It is by far the card that if you get Droll and Lockbird, if you can find access to it, at least gives you a win condition. You know, sometimes even under Droll and Lockbird, you need to kind of take a deep breath and think, okay, obviously I can't do my full combo. What game sequences can actually still lead to victory? What is my win condition here? And Abyss Dweller sometimes is sufficient enough.
Yeah, I imagine that the Book of Moon was likely used just to prevent a Yama from getting some follow-up and attacking over the Dweller. I think that makes a lot of sense, actually. In hindsight, I forgot. You don't have to just use the 2 level 3s to rank up. Just sometimes making Yama makes more sense. You can't Book of Moon that. It's 2,000 attack. Lots of actual value there.
Even under Abyss Dweller just opens the door to things that you don't want. So heading here into game 3.
I mean, again, Unchained just gets to go first again.
I was about to say, what do you think Cam's going to prioritize? This traditional Caesar opening play?
I don't think he really has to do that much differently.
No, I don't think so either. His deck is already sort of predetermined in a way that is sufficient against more or less the entire field. Unlike with the Abyss Dweller, where Hani is actually catering his play to a card from his side deck, I think Cam's just going to come out with a generic strategy.
The big thing is now he just gets to keep the Drone Lockbirds in his deck, and if he finds access to it, like with the field, that's even more threatening, right?
Absolutely. And from Hani's side, what type of cards are you thinking for the side deck?
It's weird because none of these cards are fantastic against the matchup. A Call by the Grave could kind of carry depending on when you're using it, like especially with Rage in the Grave. It's very possible that you couldn't find the value. Evenly Matched also not typically that strong against Unchained because they're able to keep a lot of their resources available, but because you're also playing a heavy combo deck, you can just really water down their field and then push through. So maybe that's what you're really trying to approach and do.
The problem with Evenly Matched, I think, is just that you're losing the battle phase, and in a perfect world, Hani's able to win by comboing, and Unchained is a deck that can sometimes have so much follow-up that your opponent's like, oh, in Evenly Matched, I can mitigate that, and I'm just going to refuel on the next turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a little bit worried about giving Cameron another turn.
I mean, I think it's only okay because you are a combo deck and you can, in theory, put up so much interruption that it wouldn't matter.
That's true.
And you still have access to Abyss Dweller, right? So
that is true. Yeah, sometimes evenly into Abyss Dweller might actually just be sufficient, regardless of how much follow-up is there.
Now, the one card that I'm looking at that I'm really not sure if he's going to put in or not is Dimension Shift.
I was looking at that too. I was just thinking about it. You know, it's one of those cards that, is it good against Unchained? Yeah.
But it's also
it's good against you a little bit too, and it's
very similar where Unchained can also side this card against the heavier combo decks. Like, who is it hurting more?
Exactly. It's one of those cards where obviously against Tier Element, different story. Clear as day, that's the main reason it's there. But what about these matchups where maybe against 50% of the opening hands, it's absolutely backbreaking, whereas the other 50%, it's a little bit more on defense?
I think it's pretty clear to say, as we start in our game 3, we'll have to see if there's an opening of Dimension Shifter. Normally, what would happen previously is you would open Tour Guide, go into Darius, go into Machinex. But I think almost everyone has cut Darius to make space for SP Little Knight, so you don't really have that solution Dimension Shifter anymore, and that's something you want to take into account when you're playing Shifter in your strategy against the Unchained deck. But it looks like Hani is just holding his hand still right here. Okay, so he's going to set, and it looks like he's going to activate Aruha on the set here. There is no response from Hani, and we're off to the races. Is there potentially an Ash Blossom on the effective chamber here? Nope, it's going to resolve.
This is one of the most ideal opening plays for Cameron.
It's one of the safest ones, too.
Definitely.
I mean, Tour Guide technically, if you're just allowing it to resolve all the way, most optimal, but Aruha set trap is just the hardest to interact with.
Yeah, this is a play that can sometimes actually play around Nibiru and also the Bestial monsters. Knowing Hani's deck list and knowing that those cards are not included, or at least we're going to go on the assumption that they're having that knowledge. I don't think Cameron's going to make those concessions, but the opening of Aruha plus the trap card in the second and third game is fantastic, not only because it's an ideal start, if you sequence it correctly, you can actually play around a variety of the side deck cards that you might anticipate seeing.
Yep, we're just going to destroy the Aruha with the effect of Shyama is going to set, summon out a Shavara, going to link those two away into Yama, going to set up the normal sequence here. Shrivara is going to set a trap card, going to set escape, and then Yama is going to add a monster here. Likely going to just be a normal summon, maybe Sarama.
Sarama is the one I was thinking, unless he has it in hand already.
That would be pretty convenient because then he could just add another copy of Shrivara. It looks like it's going to be Rakea.
Yeah, Rakea.
Considering his options here, trying to probably consider every response that Hani can have in his hand. Yep, it's just going to be the Rakea. Committed to it now. Is it likely just going to normal summon it immediately?
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be the play.
Yep.
He's going to use it on the escape here. Escape is going to special summon out Sarama.
Sarama, presumably, yep.
I think maybe he did it this way because he wanted to have access to chamber set. I mean, he could have done it either way at this point, but so now the Sarama could destroy the Rakea and set the chamber if he so chooses. Or okay, no, he's just going to make Rage first, just so he has again more recovery into a Nibiru. Because okay, so now if you were to choose to chain Nibiru to the effect of Sarama, how much recovery options do you still have? You still have the effect of Shyama in the grave, and I think that's the biggest thing.
And again, there is the possibility that Cameron knows that that card's not included in Hani's deck list, either in the side or main.
And now we have the classic Caesar trap.
Yep.
I believe this time we did set escape, or not set escape, chamber. We have a Shrivara in our hand now. I didn't take a good look at Cam's hand here. I don't know if he has a Droll and Lockbird or any other forms of interaction from the hand additional to his field.
I didn't see it, but obviously trying to map out what you'd want to see in Game 3, it would be Caesar plus Droll.
Yeah, we know that Hani plays Book of Moon. We see him play Infinite Impermanence. He could hold like many things to just deal with the Caesar outright. So we definitely want to have a couple more interactions here. Looks like there's another set. I imagine maybe an Infinite Impermanence there.
That would make the most sense.
Yep, and that's going to be a pass back. So we know Shrivara in the hand, Caesar on the field. I believe is Chamber as well.
Hani's going to have his full 6 cards. He didn't have any hand interactions on the opening turn.
Thinking.
All right, do we see a lead up of anything that interacts with the Caesar, or does he have to play into the Caesar as well?
And now we can see Infinite Impermanence, Book of Moon.
Draw phase.
Oh, looks like he has a couple Meeks in hand.
Yeah, a couple Meeks. Is that a Thrust? Or is that Obsession?
I think it's 2 Meeks, Obsession, Arrival. Looks like a lot of cards you, generally speaking, want to search out of your deck at a particular point during your opening play and not necessarily see in your opening hand.
Welcome to combo decks.
Especially Meek. Having multiple Meeks is not the greatest.
Oh, yep, we're starting with a Hero Lives.
Oh, this is a card that we have yet to showcase today.
Anything?
A Hero Lives, another classic card, allowing him to pay half of his life points and special summon an elemental hero from his deck.
I can't imagine you don't use Caesar here. You see an opportunity to resolve at least one Caesar effect. How can you not take it? If he has Forbidden Droplet, he has Forbidden Droplet. Like, what are you going to do? Nope, it's negating it. So now you know not only is Caesar able to deal with half your opponent's life points, deal with one card in their hand, but it's just sticking on the field. He likely has no response to the second effect as well. You're going to get one more use of the Caesar.
Shrivara now gets to set another trap from the deck for additional follow-up on the following turn.
Now he just has to wait if Hani has a copy of Tactics here, but nope, looks like it's just going to be normal summoning the Visa Samsara. Might opt to just link away with it immediately, but it seems like not super threatening at the moment, but again, potential threat later because it will be a copy of Visa Starfrost in the graveyard.
That was a painful Hero Lives. We have 4,000 life points to be negated by a card that was face up on the field, clear as day. That's a rough situation.
Yep, that's Chamber, and that's Chamber from last turn.
Right.
And if my assumption, that's Escape, but we'll see.
Could be Escape. It could be Infinite Impermanence on the Lightheart, which I think might also just be pretty good. I feel like giving up interactions here doesn't seem worth it.
Yeah, if there's anything that Cameron showed us in Game 1 is that he's incredibly patient with this deck. It looks like he's going to activate Abomination now.
Maybe he just wants to make sure there's never any access to Visa's cards ever.
Which is fair.
So we'll see Rage maybe target the Samsara. Oh no, he's going to activate Escape, just going to head and get rid of it, block out the Lightheart.
So he's valuing locking out the Lightheart, which is both a search for a field spell and also a potential special summon from the graveyard once during the duel.
Oh, and he's using the Yama immediately here. Doesn't necessarily have to do that either. He's going to be able to add the Sarama back to hand with the effect of Rage and likely just going to summon back the Rage.
Summon back the Rage, yeah.
Very interesting. He didn't have to summon back the Rage just yet because he still had the Shrivara to destroy his other set chamber, but it looks like he's prioritizing having chamber on the following turn. And there is the arrival to go back and summon back the Samsara. So now you spent the resources to get rid of it the first time. Do you want to just link it away now and then just banish it?
I know if it was a problem the first time this happened, it's probably equally as much a problem now in the eyes of Cameron.
I'm surprised you didn't just use Caesar, honestly.
Yeah, that's surprising too. Is there something that you would rather wait for Caesar on?
I don't know.
Yeah, so.
Oh, that's it. It's
Regardless.
a quick victory there. Unchained making its field just too strong. Lots of removal there. Mannadium has a really hard time, and Cameron Neal will be moving on into the top 8 here at YCS Indianapolis.
Whenever High King Caesar goes uninterrupted and you get to use both of the detachment effects, it is going to be very difficult for combo-based decks to push through that.
Yeah, you just kind of like assume that card's going to get negated in some fashion. You're like, ah, yeah, someone's going to deal with this, and then I'll have all these other stuff to deal with the rest of your field. And usually Unchained feels comfortable doing that. When Caesar gets to resolve, you're like, oh, I guess I won.
I don't know if I've seen a Caesar actually resolve its effect all weekend. It's just exactly as you just said. It is the lightning rod. You need to immediately deal with it. If your opponent has a Book of Moon effect, they're going to deal with it. Infinite Impermanent, they're going to deal with it. But then it's the other layers of the Unchained combo itself and the layers of interaction both in the graveyard and the hand that make it so that that deck is so difficult to push through because, yeah, I can win with just this one single High King Caesar. But if you don't deal with it, or if you do deal with it, I still have all these other points of interaction as well.
Yeah, and that's likely, like, Caesar half the time is not even there for its interruption. It's like, okay, if this card leaves the field for whatever reason, I get a trap card and immediate follow-up in the gates, which is going to give me a destruction effect and also just threaten Zeus immediately. It's so much in just a follow-up, you don't forget about the threat that it has on the field. You just kind of like overlook it because you assume you're going to be playing without it, but when you're not playing without it, you realize, oh yeah, this deck is pretty good.
Absolutely. Sometimes those interactions are sufficient enough to win, and the follow-up on the next turn just make it insurmountable. With that being said, we'll go to the interview of the winner, Cameron, just a little bit.